for viewers out there that aren't so familiar with all this, explain, what is a cannabinoid?
Well, cannabinoid is the chemical pharmaceutical profile in marijuana. So there's about 85 known cannabinoids that have already been isolated and researched. And these are the constituents that make up the plant. THC, which everybody knows, is the cannabinoid that gets you high. There's another cannabinoid called CBD, which is the cannabinoid that doesn't get you high. It's non-psychotropic, and that's the one that we've been looking at really intently.
So what is it that you are trying to do, and what is it that you've been approved to do here with the NIH? So
the NIH has basically given us a license. We have two licenses. The first one was an exclusive license we got for a brain-liver disease called hepatic encephalopathy, it's of the result of cirrhotic livers. So we're doing research right now to basically remove toxins from the brain or protect the brain from toxins. And the second disease indication that we just got approval for is something called CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which a lot of NFL football players, hockey players, and a lot of U.S. veterans who are soldiers actually deal with.
Because of all the head concussions.
Yeah, concussions.
How do you reconcile this with the fact that this is a Schedule I drug, and how is it that the National Institute for Health is okaying this despite marijuana being federally illegal?
Well, we're working with our scientists who are allowed to do research and work on Schedule I drugs. And so we're working out of the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. And we have two great scientists in William McKinney and Doug Brenneman, and both have been involved in big pharmaceutical drug development. And Dr. Brenneman also used to work for the NIH as well. So we're really concerned about getting the right information out, doing the right research, and developing the right types of pharmaceuticals.
And this is a synthetic drug? Or?
It can be synthetic or it can be natural. We're looking at something that's cannabinoid-like at the moment.
And one final question before I bring in Brendan. If this were a natural form of cannabinoid, wouldn't that involve actual marijuana? And so are you saying that if this were if you see this through entirely, would people, say, be able to go to their pharmacy and have a prescription?
Yeah, that's what the...
And maybe have it paid for by their health insurance.
Yeah, that's what the FDA does. So the FDA, once the FDA approves a drug, it's any doctor anywhere in the United States can prescribe it.
Okay, really fascinating. As we look at all these developments here on the marijuana front, I do want to bring in Brendan, whose company, Leafly, just ran that ad, the first marijuana ad in the New York Times over the weekend, and I understand you guys had to really pay up for that because those ads don't come cheap. They're about $200,000 a pop. How does your company work, and why did you see it as important to take out a big ad like that in the Times?
Well, for us, it was important to be part of history. We wanted to be first. We were thrilled with the passage of the Compassionate Care Act in New York, and then, obviously, the release that the New York Times editorial board started a week ago. And we wanted to place the first mainstream ad. We wanted to convey to medical cannabis patients in New York that we were available to provide information to them. And we wanted it to be in a mainstream manner. We wanted it to be a mainstream ad that didn't embrace all the typical cliches that you see in the industry.
How do you see this industry changing, and what do you forecast, Brendan, over the next, say, 3 to 6 years for marijuana legalization?
Oh, I think we're in the beginning of the transition to the end of prohibition. It'll happen sooner than everyone thinks, and I think that we'll benefit from additional tax revenue, we'll benefit from putting fewer people in prison, and I think we'll benefit from additional research that will be able to be performed over the next 10 to 20 years, when you will see great advancements in research and additional pharmaceuticals.
Well, you know, as Thoma's company is clearly working on. Let me also ask you, Brendan, I mean, your state there, Washington, has really been known to take its time when it comes to a lot of this regulation versus Colorado, which has put a lot of regulation thus far in place. What do you think needs to be done so that you can be assured that, marijuana does not fall into the hands of minors? There have been recent reports, of course, in Colorado that young people have had edible marijuana thinking it's a candy bar because, the packaging is so great. And Washington, I assume, wants to make sure that it's not going to be an environment where young people can access this.
So Colorado had a really well-developed medical cannabis program. The program in Washington State was not nearly as robust as the one in Colorado, so it's taken a bit longer here in Washington State. In other countries, like in Canada, we see a really tightly regulatory system, a tightly regulated system, and we think that we'll likely see something like that in New York. And in New York, I think we'll move really quickly with the enactment of the Compassionate Care Act. There seems to be a lot of demand and a lot of urgency based on some of the.
Hey, it's changing, and it's changing fast.